Hello and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories in the week. I'm Teniola Shoboale. The headlines. Lawyers at the Lagos Judicial Panel of Restitution of Victims of SARS disagree over aspects of the footage on the Lekki toll gate and SARS protest. National Assembly seeks 1% of VAT revenue to rebuild states destroyed as a result of EndSARS protest. Federal government expresses optimism about exiting recession by early 2021. News Round begins with the Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry and Restitution for Victims of SARS-related abuses and other matters, where there was legal fireworks at the last sitting. The deliberation focused on whether or not the remaining CCTV recording on October 20th, 2020 be reviewed. This followed arguments raised by the lawyer to the EndSARS protesters who tried to establish some discrepancies in the recording at the Lekki toll gate before, during and after the incident.
If there's irregularity,
3 petitions were listed for hearing at the panel, with the session starting with the managing director of Lekki Concession Company answering questions on the video recording from the LCC cameras.
you will see that from 12 hours to 1 p.m., that's almost 13 hours, the camera was tilting and panning and rotating at the average of 15 to 19 seconds to capture the entire area. So where is the control located?
The control room
Where?
is located at Toll Plaza 2. Toll Plaza 2.
And what?
Toll Plaza 2 is the office, our office that is at Chevron.
Chevron.
That area. Yes.
Okay.
The Lagos State government lawyer is quick to come to his rescue, but not without a heated argument from others.
Mr. Glenn had a chance to look at it just like the rest of us, and we agreed that having regard to what we are looking at here, whatever happens before the curfew does not appear to be part of the issues we have problems with. So we agreed that from 5 o'clock after the curfew took off till 8 when the video ended was relevant portion, and we came back and the panel ruled and agreed.
My lord, with due respect, when Mr. Owunikoko stood up now, I thought he would give evidence as per the discussion between us. I was impugning his integrity. But I've listened carefully. He didn't go to the issue of the caveat, except if the gentleman is saying, I never put up a caveat in my meeting with the two of them. I put a caveat that, but I will agree for us to continue from 5 to 8 if, when it comes to cross-examination. Let me finish. Pending. LCC used to do things this way. At this particular time of the intake that we are interested in, that thing changed. That's what it's trying to establish. Then we should know, why did it change? If before the sequence is 3 seconds, then the one we are interested in, the sequence changed to 1 second, 5 seconds, and all that. There must be an explanation.
After the heated argument, the panel takes a break to rule on whether or not to watch an extended version of the video footage. The matter is then adjourned till December the 11th.
I would have been raped because of all of this.
Other petitions before the panel include that of one Nkemakolam Okpara, a victim of police brutality, and Aminat Olusoya, who told the panel about how her husband was shot by the police.
That very day, on his way back, he was stopped by police. I don't know whether there is argument between two of them. The police shot his vehicle tire, and forced the vehicle doors to open, after the argument and shot him. It's killing us, man.
Please just calm down, calm down.
Just in front of the police station, there were so many policemen there, so many of them. I cannot count how many was there. They started beating me. It wasn't just any kind of beating. With their legs, pounds, conk, slap on my face. I lost control of my body. My phone fell on the ground. One of them used his foot to smash the phone because he believed I was recording with my phone and I'm going to post it on the internet. While we were still at that gate, some were coming out, they joined the beating, dragged me inside. That was where I lost control of my body. I peed on myself.
The session ends with the panel promising to take more cases and speed up the fact-finding process.
For the damaged infrastructure during the EndSARS protests, the private sector coalition against COVID-19, CACOVID, is giving support to the Nigerian government with a 100 billion naira for the re-equipping of the Nigerian police. This was made known at a forum in Lagos where the governor of the central bank, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, gave account of spendings or previous donations by CACOVID and other well-meaning Nigerians.
The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has been felt globally, and Nigeria has had to deal with it, as well as the EndSARS protests, which led to lootings of private and public property across the country. The scourge of COVID-19 necessitated the formation of CACOVID earlier in the year by corporate organizations in partnership with the federal government to assist in mitigating the impact of the virus. And for the CBN governor, it's time to account for what has been spent by CACOVID so far and unveil measures agreed upon by the CACOVID Alliance in rebuilding confidence in the Nigerian economy.
CACOVID requested and indeed received an outpouring of support from over 200 well-meaning Nigerians and corporates, organizations who provided in kind donations as well as funds to the tune of 39,646,100,039 naira in support of the fight against COVID-19. CACOVID has so far incurred expenditure in the sum of 43,272,562,831 naira on the acquisition of not only medical equipment and supplies, but also food palliatives for the vulnerable amongst us.
The president of Dangote Group, Mr. Aliko Dangote, also announces plans by CACOVID to train youths and fund the police with 100 billion naira to help with security challenges in the country.
With 100 billion, we'll import vehicles, we'll buy ammunition, we'll buy so many things to retool the entire police, which I think is a lot of money.
Founder of Tony Elumelu Foundation, Mr. Tony Elumelu notes that the private sector is working hard to alleviate poverty in Nigeria, while the managing director, Access Bank, Mr. Herbert Wigwe, encourages youths to approach banks for support.
The private sector in Nigeria, we are committed to poverty alleviation because we know that poverty anywhere, with anyone affects all of us.
What I'll just say to young people who are seeking funding to start their own respective businesses, please reach out to your banks. Somebody will support you.
With the COVID-19 vaccine now in sight, CACOVID stakeholders are encouraging the private sector to do more and not leave the job alone to the government as the fight against the virus continues.
Meanwhile, the upper legislative house is also making its contribution towards restoring the economic fortunes of the nation in the aftermath of the EndSARS protest. The senators have requested the federal government to compensate the states where massive destruction took place during the protest and recommends 1% of proceeds from the value-added tax be set aside for that purpose.
The National Assembly was on recess when the country witnessed massive destruction of properties and infrastructure following the shooting by soldiers at the Lekki Toll Plaza in Lagos in the attempt to disperse NSAS protesters there. At the resumption of legislative proceedings on Tuesday, two federal lawmakers called the attention of their colleagues to the level of destruction to public and private properties across the country in the aftermath of the protests.
Concerned that the alleged shooting of protesters further infuriated protesters and tension flared with consequent violent protests and the beginning of wanton looting and destruction of public and private assets all over the country, and particularly Lagos, the epicenter of all the protests. Worried that the private and public assets destroyed by hoodlums in Lagos was estimated to be in the region of 1 trillion naira.
The Senate is worried that despite the 24-hour curfew, a group of vandals on the next day, being 24th October, invaded over 120 properties in Calabar and vandalized, looted, burnt down some high-valued properties belonging to individuals, the state government, and the federal government.
Expectedly, the motions elicited contributions from legislators.
I believe that we've not done enough to protect the interests of the young people of this country. We still owe them responsibility to provide them jobs and a secured future. Because unless that happens, we'll continue to experience this kind of agitation and protest. The second means that the security men we have in this country have been overstressed and possibly not enough. So this time for us to begin to consider what some of us have been talking about, which is the decentralization of our police sector, so that each state should be able to have the number and the quality of police they need.
As the NSAS victims are being compensated, so also the victims of banditry, where hoodlums also attacked homes, burned down their properties, cut away their livelihoods, should also be compensated.
Federal lawmakers want the federal government to compensate states affected by the violence and destruction in the aftermath of the protest with 1% of proceeds from the value-added tax. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
As the nation grapples with the task of rebuilding damaged infrastructure in the aftermath of the NSAS protest, the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Mohammed Adamu, has warned against the resumption of street demonstrations in the name of NSAS. The IGP directed commissioners of police and other senior police officers to redouble their efforts in securing the country ahead of the Yuletide.
It is the monthly meeting of the Inspector General of Police with senior police officers in Abuja. The Inspector General, while reassuring residents of his renewed commitment to guaranteeing the security of the nation, warns violent protesters not to test the will of the police.
We shall never allow any violent protests in this country again.
We want the IG to continue to be more committed to the cause of the country and to continue to ensure that we maintain peace and security of the country.
Again, the Inspector General assures Nigerians of the commitment of the police to provide adequate and effective security throughout the country, as he promises to arrest prisoners who took advantage of the NSAS protest.
I wish to reassure the citizens of Nigeria of our renewed commitment to serve them and ensure their security and safety. In doing so, we continually solicit the understanding, support, and encouragement of all citizens and other segments of the society in the country.
The meeting, which continued behind closed doors, is aimed at reviewing the operations of the police within the last 1 month in order to re-strategize ahead of potential security threats.
When News Round returns in just a moment, federal government expresses optimism about exiting recession by early 2021. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on the program. Nigeria's economy may have slipped into recession for the second time in 5 years, but the federal government is optimistic of exiting by the first quarter of 2021. The Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, said that Nigeria's case is not exceptional, as many other economies are experiencing the same due to the COVID-19 pandemic. She spoke at the opening of the 26th Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja.
A convergence of government officials, private sector and civil society organizations at the 26th Nigeria Economic Summit in Abuja. Nigeria's economic woes amidst a recession is foregrounded here, but the finance minister says the nation's case is not as bad as other developed countries.
While the economy has entered into recession in this third quarter, the trend of the growth suggests that this will be a short-lived recession, and indeed, by the fourth or at worst the first quarter of 2021, that the country will exit recession.
Quite intentionally, Chairman of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group appealed to the federal government to reinforce strategic partnership for growth.
I beg you to ensure that no Nigerian child is out of school. I beg you to ensure that none of our mothers die at childbirth, that no citizen lacks social protection, that we create an environment that has world-class infrastructure, that we have respect for the rule of law.
In the panel session, the debate on policy inconsistencies, youth engagement and private sector collaboration became pivotal.
Ensuring that you increase revenue depends on a number of things. Reducing leakage is one of it, but also, inevitably, in certain instances, expanding the tax bracket is another.
If we do not have the right policies, a business can only be as great as the government or the environment allows it to be.
As a country, we must listen to the people. And the only way we can address all of these challenges now is to take advantage of the constitutional amendment that is ongoing.
In response, the Vice President underpins that the federal government is working hard to incentivize local businesses.
It goes without saying that partnerships remain essential to attract the resources for building a solid national infrastructural base.
The pressure to develop innovative approaches is especially great at this time. Organizers believe that this is particularly fundamental to deliver economic outcomes that would impact on the lives of many Nigerians at this time. Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
The House of Representatives is digging into alleged payment of allowances to officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs after they were recalled. This decision formed part of the resolution reached by the lawmakers following a motion of urgent public importance raised by the minority leader of the House.
It's the second plenary session of the week in the House of Representatives. The minority leader raises a motion of urgent public importance, drawing the attention of the House to alleged illegal payments by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs running into millions of dollars.
It's been alleged that these officials, 1 year after their recall to headquarters, are still receiving full entitlements such as accommodation allowance, house allowance, transport allowance, medical and utility bills, aided by staff of the Human Resources Department of the Ministry, who collect sums of money from these erring officials and internationally frustrate efforts of posted colleagues to replace those posted back to headquarters by refusing to protect the needed documentation that will enable them to resume duty at the various foreign missions.
The House Committee on Foreign Affairs is then mandated to investigate the allegations and report back in 4 weeks. Meanwhile, another motion of urgent public importance is raised on the recent attacks on staff and students of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, in Kaduna State, by bandits. According to the mover of the motion, Garba Muhammad, the university can no longer operate in a safe environment.
Mindful, therefore, that this emergency has become a national emergency that touches on every Nigerian, and that the overriding need to protect this heritage cannot be overstated. Resolve to call on the federal government to urgently and without further delay erect a secure wall around the campuses of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. Call on the Inspector General of Police to urgently and without further delay establish a unit of its mobile police personnel at the institution, particularly at the Phase 2 segment of Samaru campus.
About 2 weeks ago, 9 students of ABU Zaria were kidnapped along the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway and a staff abducted from his home days later. The House is also asking the Chief of Army Staff to urgently establish a battalion of the Nigerian Army at the southern border of the university. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And that's the program this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shuboale. Have a lovely weekend.